Chess is a timeless strategy game with merit in both analytical and psychological self-development. Although there are certainly many games out right now, most cannot be engaging for a meaningfully long amount of time because they lack mechanical depth. It is estimated that there are more games of chess than atoms in the universe. It is for this same reason that simpler games such as Connect 4 or checkers are looked down upon. They are computationally solved. Perfect play on both sides will always lead to a victory and draw for each game respectively. This is also why correct calculation in chess is a gratifying and not to mention translatable skill. There are also speed variants of chess that develops your thinking speed too. Furthermore, human chess play can provide a surprising amount of insight into individual psychology. In every position, there are usually a few valid moves, each pertaining to a different style of play. Are you a trickster? How well do you handle uncomfortable situations? Do you like risks? How passive or active do you like acting? These are the sorts of questions we may explore about ourselves at lower level of play, and only lower, since at its ideal, chess is played robotically. Nevertheless, chess is something most are not acquainted with besides the basic rules, and even then sometimes have misconceptions. Hence, this video exists to provide the basics of chess in a modern form. Assuming the setup position and the rules of movement and pawn promotion are understood, we will start with the two special rules in chess, castling and en passant. Castling is a maneuver performed between the rook and king, usually played early on, with the idea of providing safety to the king by tucking it away. On the king side, it looks like this, and on the queen side, like that. When the other pieces are mobilized, this allows for the rooks to be connected. The king cannot normally move into check, therefore, castling may not be performed neither through check nor in check. This is a move that is normally played. However, it is sometimes stalled in favor of an early attack in order to retain momentum. En passant, French for in passing, is a special pawn attack that allows your pawn to capture an enemy pawn which passes you by performing its one-time double advance. The idea is that pawns shouldn't be able to escape a fight. It is worth noting that this maneuver may only be performed immediately after the attempted escape. We will now consider the point system in chess, which is a rough way of calculating who is winning. The score is calculated by taking the difference in the sum of each player's pieces. Each piece is assigned the following values: 1 for pawns, 3 for knights and bishops, 5 for rooks, and 9 for the queen. For example, if you trade your knight for a pawn, your score is -2. Checkmate is worth a score of infinity. Note that 2 rooks have a higher value than a queen. Also note that modern theories suggest that a bishop is worth slightly more than a knight, say 3.25 instead of 3. The idea is that a bishop can move further across the board in a single move than a knight, so it is more valuable towards the end of the game, which, by the way, is usually how a game should go, since premature checkmate is a sign of unbalanced play. There are roughly 3 stages to chess play: the opening, middle, and end game. The opening of chess is essentially solved. With every move, there is a correct 1 or 2 replies, but this quickly fades into what is the heart of chess, the middle game, where we consider the majority of chess play to happen. With practice, endgames take a variety of familiar structures, which, although are not nearly as familiar as the opening, are usually simpler than the middle game because there are less pieces on the board and you are actually trying to checkmate. The goal of the opening is to develop your minor pieces and form a strong pawn structure. The peculiarities of each opening will need to be studied independently, but at a glance, a typical development tries to control the center and deploy the knights and bishops. A particular endgame worth considering is the stalemate, a form of draw, which occurs when no legal moves are available to either player. This ending can be a strategy in and of itself to entrap new players into a draw in an otherwise winning position. This is why some players choose to promote a passed pawn into a rook instead of a queen. Only a king and rook are necessary for checkmate. And this leads to an endgame structure we all should know: the rook and king versus king. The fundamental structure is as follows, that is, opposing kings, and the idea is to push the opposing king to the end of the board and then finally strangle it. First, create a wall with your rook so that the opposing king cannot pass. Then advance your king until it faces the opposing king and advance the rook one square. You need opposing kings so that all forward squares are blocked when the rook advances. If the king threatens capture of the rook, simply move the piece, and if the king is outrunning yours, perform a waiting move to force the face-to-face position. Repeat until victory. Let us now consider tactics. One or few move combinations which often result in an advantage. There are a few forms that are exceedingly common. The named ones are skewers, pins, forks, and discovered attacks. Let's go through each. Skewers, pins, and forks are really variations of the same idea, putting pressure on two pieces at once. A skewer is when a weaker piece is attacked behind a stronger piece and captured because, presumably, your opponent will want to preserve the stronger piece. A pin is the opposite of this. A weaker piece is attacked and the stronger one is obligated to protect it. Forks are a little different in that they actually attack two pieces. It is used more commonly to refer to double attacks by the knight or pawn, especially the knight because of its unique movement. Discovered attacks by a piece occur when it has restored its offensive options by moving the piece that blocks it. This may create a double attack, which can be especially effective since one move is turned into two attacks. The key to defending this tactic is preventative. Finally, let us consider the fundamental long-term strategy in chess. Although there are a few others, such as control of the center of the board or king safety, really, all of these can be grouped under the dichotomy of dominance and submission. Modern chess AI have shown that dominance over the board is more important than piece count towards the end of play. These same AI sometimes make sacrifices to promote active play and eventually win in a way that old AIs wouldn't. And this makes sense. If you're checkmated, it doesn't matter what the score is. The idea here is that you always want to evaluate how dominant your position is and the move you're about to make feels. This is somewhat related to a way of playing that seeks to make your opponent feel uncomfortable, but often, dominant moves are obvious ones, so this misses the big picture. This is something that will take some playing to see, but is really a key idea behind chess. There is no move more dominant than checkmate.